welcome to the Height of It podcast. This is now episode number 3, and today we have got 2 very special guests. We've got Emma Metcalfe and we've got Justin Kieran. Emma and Justin are the founders of a charity called The Hand of Hope, which deals with all of the issues surrounding addiction. So we're gonna get into that today, guys. Welcome to the Height of It.
Thank you much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
To be here.
Not at all. You guys brought donuts.
We did.
And you're the first guest to have brought donuts, so that automatically makes you our favourite guests.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
For the 2 previous guests, bring donuts next time. Justin, I want to start with you, if that's all right.
No problem.
Could you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here?
So my name's Justin Kieran. I'm a 24-year-old, coming 25 in the next few weeks. I'm from a wee village called Watertown, County Armagh. Me and Emma have known each other for years now, but we became very, very close in the last, maybe 18 months. Whenever I reached out to Emma about a personal problem of mine, which I'm sure we're gonna get into, but I had an issue with alcohol, and I reached out to Emma, just to sort of guide me, as you know, at that stage I didn't have any sort of clue about what path to go down when you have an alcohol problem and whatnot, because at that age you don't know. I'd heard of AA meetings and stuff from movies, and that's what the only sort of encounter I would have had with them. But
was it word of mouth? How did you even know about me?
Or no, was it?
No, that's happened.
You took me to my first. You took me to my first meet, one of my first meetings. I don't know how I was anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so here brings me to where I am today.
Yeah, and what is your background? Do you you look like a pretty fit guy?
Yeah, so I'm a personal trainer. In Watertown. I've opened a wee private facility for Gaelic football teams, and it's mainly women or a gym for women. We've set that up, and when I'm not in the gym, I'm normally on the football field. I've played football. That's all I really knew from I grew up. My goal from this height was to play for Armagh, which I have did.
And you've done that?
I did. I left the panel.
The senior team?
The senior team. I left the panel 3 months ago. I kept getting niggles with my hamstring, and I just wanted to get away from it for a wee while and get my body right, and then get a full year club football. I just recently transferred club to Watertown, where I live. I was with my old club Greens, which I loved all my life, but one of my brothers plays for Blackwater, and the oldest brother came over from Australia and he joined Blackwater, so it made sense for me to join them. So when I'm not in the gym, I'm playing football, but unfortunately I won't be playing football for a wee while. I picked up a bad injury. You can't see it on camera here, but I ruptured my Achilles, so I'm going to be out for probably the best part of a year now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you did hobble in there on your
not
crutches
ideal.
Also.
Not ideal. So it's but look, I had a few days to feel sorry for myself a couple of weeks ago, and you can only do that for so long. So
yeah,
just looking forward to the recovery now.
Before you got into the field that you're in now, which we're going to get into soon, what did you do before then? Did you work? Did you have a career?
Oh yeah, I done hairdressing and I travelled a lot. Before I had children.
Yeah.
And then I met Sean. My husband's from Derry, and we met each other over in Boston. And moved home here and had our first child. Yes. So more or less born and reared in Armagh, oldest of 5. I'm going to say the good example for my younger siblings. And you know, we had a good upbringing too. We were brought up with the same sort of community. I practically reared in a football pitch, to be honest. My mum played football a lot too. When we were wee, we lived in Drumbreda. So we all played for the Harps. I can't say I played for the Harps, but I was there. That's where all the mums and all the kids would have been, especially all summer. And as I grew older then, I had no interest in any sport really. I was the one smoking, behind the corner, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wasn't bold, but I was just,
typical
teenage stuff.
Yeah.
What does
Well, that's interesting.
So, yeah.
There's a bit of a shared history there. You both grew up in
Yes.
with the GAA and
Oh, God,
Gaelic
yeah.
football and very much into
Uh-huh.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so your organisation, Hand of Hope, did you start that first? Is that your organisation, or is it a joint thing? Were you working on something before that?
No, we came.
I
think you came to the idea with me, but like anything, you've over the course of a year, you've so many ideas, but we just, because we feel so passionate about this topic, that we just said, I don't know if I'm swearing this, but we just said, frig it, like we'll if we're going to do this, we're going to go after it. And yeah, it
wasn't planned the way it happened. Actually, Justin just called. I remember I said to you, should we do like a wee thing podcast, like a wee 5-minute clip for these young ones?
We did like a wee video, and then it took off.
We didn't. Yeah, it wasn't planned to take off, so it did. I mean, he came in and sat his phone, tapped my worktop, and was all, "Oh, we'll just do it now, Emma."
And why? You said that you reached out to Emma first. Why Emma? Why did you reach out?
Just
did you know her beforehand, or?
Emma took me to one of my first meetings. We can't speak too much about that with the people in it and whatnot, but we attend a fellowship, which
we're allowed to say we go to AA.
Okay,
but that's it.
We go to AA, but Emma took me to one of the first meetings and took me to hundreds of meetings in the last.
And that's why you reached out to Emma.
Reached out to Emma, and we just grew. Whenever you travel to meetings with people, and travel home, never mind inside the meeting, you grow a bond with someone. We're actually second cousins, I think.
Yeah.
Second or third cousins. So with that sort of link, and not even just when we're not going to meetings together. For a long time, especially in the early stages of my sobriety, it would just be like call over for a cup of tea, and you end up growing a really good friendship with someone.
It's like part of the family. Do you know what I mean? Look, obviously I have a husband, and he wouldn't be able to relate to me the same way a recovering alcoholic can relate to me, because we think so differently.
Yeah. And you two are both, you've got something in common now, which is an addiction.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you mind if we get into that?
Yeah, of course.
Of course.
What about you, Emma, first? What is the nature of your addiction?
Alcohol.
Okay.
Mine was alcohol.
Would you say you were an alcoholic, or you still are an alcoholic? Or?
A recovering alcoholic.
So you're always in that bracket, aren't you? There's never any...
Oh yeah, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's an alcoholic not in recovery or in recovery. I've been in recovery 10 years.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
Yeah.
Emma, sorry to jump in, but does that mean, is there no such thing as recovered?
You can. Some people do say they're recovered, but I say I am definitely recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body, but I'm never recovered from the physical allergy. The allergy's always there, so I'll never recover from that. But I've recovered from a hopeless state of mind. So, yeah.
When did it first occur to you that you had a problem, and what led up to it?
After I had my son, I came to see that I didn't have anyone to mind my son for me and Sean to go out and socialise or do all the things that we used to do together. And I seen myself very quickly. Ethan was probably about 1, and I started to maybe have a glass of wine on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, making the dinner. This is literally how simple this started. And then I was a stay-at-home mummy because childcare was didn't pay me to go to work, so I was a stay-at-home mum. And then Sean was coming home from work, and I might have the table all set fancy and stuff, like ludicrous stuff on a random day. But I didn't realise this was all stuff for me to glamorise alcohol. That's what that was doing. So it occurred to me that it might be a problem before anyone else told me I had a problem. I knew deep within me that there was something, I'd need to watch it. It was getting a bit earlier in the day. And the other thing that kept saying, no, you're not alcoholic, was the fact that I could not tolerate drunk people from no age. I was always petrified of drunk people. I don't know why. Nothing ever happened to me. Or I suppose in our culture, when you see drunk people falling about, that's the norm. And that used to always scare me. So I hated drunk people. I hated the whole camaraderie of it. So I thought, me having a few drinks at home was fine.
So you weren't a big pub goer?
No, no. I was a prisoner in my own home. I drank from my house.
That's a very interesting way to put it, a prisoner.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask what the quantities we're talking here are?
So it would have started off. My granny, God rest her, she used to call me Emma Rosé because I used to love rosé. I didn't like any taste of any alcohol, to be honest, but I just knew rosé was a type of wine. So, and then it used to be 3 bottles of wine for a tenner. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks. Yes, 3 bottles of wine for a tenner. And I thought, that is some deal. Red, white, and a rosé. Let's go for that. And then I used
The old tricolour.
Yeah, I'm telling you, red, white, and the rosé. I swear. And I didn't drive. Thank God I didn't drive at that time, because I would have had my son in the pram. And I have to protect my son here too also, because he is a teenager. And he would have no recollection of any of this. And he doesn't remember much of my drinking either, thank God. But he was in a pram, and I was walking up and down the road 2 or 3 times a day buying alcohol. And I used to start in a Tory Heights off licence there. Jackie Kelly would have known our family anyway and was close to the family. And I used to lie and say, have I come down with me the night, or of a party the night, and I'd buy wine with gift bags. Or just any bullshit excuse to take the luck of the drink,
So that kind of dishonesty, that lying to other people had kicked in.
Yes.
Whenever I say quantity, I mean,
Oh.
I have no idea what a quantity would be. Would it be 1 glass a day, 1 bottle a day, 2 bottles a day?
All right, so I didn't know until I got into recovery that quantity or quality does not matter.
Right.
Once I put the first drink in my system, it starts a phenomenon of craving that I have no control over. Doesn't matter about quantity or quality. I could have 1 glass of wine, I could have a bottle. The first drink is the problem. It starts the allergy. And I'll drink until I black out.
Oh, that's very interesting, because a lot of people wouldn't really understand that. That's
No.
People understand you're a big drinker. That's what alcoholism is. But
No.
to categorise it as an allergy, that once the allergen is in you,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
Is very interesting. You go ahead, Pete.
So, I mean, what sort of timeline was it between going from 1 drink to drinking so much that you were blacking out?
Oh, on a daily basis. On a daily basis. I could have got drunk maybe 2 or 3 times in the one day and blacked out. Yeah. Yeah, it was horrific.
But you started having that glass of wine, and then how much time did it take to get to the point where you were drinking so much that you were? I mean, was that a year or over a period of?
No, mine progressed very quickly, and I caught up on me very quickly. Maybe because I'm a mother, and I was caught out very quickly as well. The family, obviously, my family's very supportive, and we're all very close, and we all know every move of each other. Especially my parents, they were watching me like a hawk because they knew there was something not right. So the drinking did progress very quickly, but I still wouldn't have said then I was an alcoholic. I actually used the term that it might have been postnatal depression untreated. That's what I said.
I was going to ask something there about almost related to that, because why? What was the issue? Why were you drinking alcohol? Because you didn't like the taste? You weren't particularly fond of the drink? So was there something there that you were trying to kill? Was it depression, a postnatal issue?
No. I mean, I had a great life being brought up. I had no traumas. I mean, it wasn't. I didn't live in Mary Poppins land, but I mean, there's nothing that I can look back on and say something triggered my drinking. Whereas my mum would say that to me. She was all, something's happened to you in America. I said, Mum, I had the best time of my life in America. Nothing happened. But I know one thing. When I took the first drink, an alcoholic was definitely born. I know that. The effect of the first drink I ever had was unbelievable. Because the discussions in my mind just stopped.
Right. What do you mean discussions?
So an alcoholic sets the drink down, but we're still left. It's also centred in our mind.
Okay, so you
Right.
can't stop thinking about it. Is that what you mean?
No, I think differently on daily things, normal stuff. Like for me to go and collect my children at the schoolyard, like it's exhausting. The arguments I'm having in my thoughts, going, right, well, they're all talking about me and they're all staring at me and they're all this.
Anxiety, social anxiety.
But yeah, it causes anxiety. The discussions cause the anxiety. But AA showed me how to treat the discussions,
Okay.
right? I don't hear voices.
Yes.
There's a difference.
Of course,
I'm
yeah.
not completely insane. But like this, I heard one man, and he's a long time in recovery, and he says, Emma, if a civilian out there has seen say, all right, we had a glass head, I'll tell you now, they'd run for their life. And I was all, really? And he was all, like, an alcoholic understands, or I can understand Justin's way of thinking.
Right.
I would text him, like, what's happening? And he would reply going, getting it tough. That's not drink related. That's whatever is happening and going on in his life right now. Drink has been removed. How do I live without it?
And is that a daily struggle?
From I open my eyes in the morning to I go to bed at night. Yes.
Okay.
Not wanting to drink. But my state of mind is what I have to protect every single day from I get up in the morning till I go to bed at night. Not to go too deep within myself and my own thinking, because I'm going down a rabbit hole that is probably going to tell me a load of lies, and 99% of my thoughts are not true. That's what most alcoholics in recovery will tell you. Not true.
And if you drink, back in the day, would that stop
Yeah.
all of that, and you would feel like you were
Untouchable.
much better to function? Yeah, untouchable. Okay.
Untouchable.
Okay.
I could get up, I could have the house scrubbed, cleaned, do everything. Yeah.
Very interesting. What brought it out then? Who was it, or what was it that did someone intervene?
Oh God, yeah. On numerous occasions. On numerous occasions. I'll tell you the power of alcohol. I ended up having, me and my husband had another child. And the love a mother has for a child, you could just imagine, is unreal. Like, if someone hurt my child today, I'd do time, they're dead. Like, the love I have for my children, alcohol had more power over that. I didn't step over them for a drink. I might have walked around them though. Or ignored the crying or the begging, Mummy stop, Mummy don't. And that was the power alcohol had in my life.
That's a very profound thing to say. It's a very brave thing to say.
Painful. It's
And
painful to
yeah.
say, especially when I seen their wee faces, and I knew there was part of me saying, my mind was saying, Emma, don't do it. But the physical allergy was like, Emma, fuck it, get it. You need to get it now, because I'm going to go into withdrawal.
Yeah.
And then that's me in absolute living hell, where it's high risk of suicide.
Right.
So drinking tames the coming off.
Yeah.
Coming off
and
it.
you can justify it then. You can say, well, if I drink, I'll be better.
Yeah.
And I can take care of the kids better.
Yeah.
And I can... Yeah.
So at 9 a.m, then it became very relevant that I needed it to get out of bed.
Right.
Yeah.
And was it the children? Did you come up yourself and say, look, I need help? Or did someone...
No, tough love, I suppose. I watched my family sitting in front of me in tears saying, Emma, you're drinking yourself to death. And I was took up to a psychiatric ward, and they said, Emma, you are absolutely mentally stable, but this drinking is going to kill you if you don't do something now. And I didn't know where to turn. and my husband. I mean, there's photos I look back at, and there's some of them I rip up because they're too painful to even look at. And my children are both wee, and he's holding the two of them, and he looks about 5 stone. And he has the weight of the world on him. And the selfish alcoholic is like not trying to be selfish or wanting to hurt a soul.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to try and say, Sean, I don't mean to hurt you. It's like me saying to you, even if you don't have a problem with drink or any addiction, he didn't know how to help me. Like he says, Emma, I can't do this another day. And my husband's from Derry.
Mm-hmm.
And many's the time he took him and the kids off. So with all that support, but the support at the time, they were all my problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get on to the support bit in a bit.
Yeah.
I just want to give you a bit of a break as well
Yeah.
from that. But
Like,
thanks for sharing that. It was very profound.
thanks, Mom.
We're just moving on to you, Justin. Obviously, you're very different. You're younger. You're an athletic young lad. High flying football. Tell us a little bit about what your struggle is, how it started out, what it became, and how it came to be resolved. And well, not resolved, but you got to now.
I suppose I'll go from the first time I drank. You just mightn't have remembered, but when you went to Cookstown and you ended up too drunk, there was like street angels there to help people that would help you sober up. So maybe the first 3 or 4 times I drank, I remember the first time definitely I drank, I ended up in a wheelchair that night because with tinfoil all over me, because that's how drunk I got. And I remember I drank a quarter of a quarter bottle, which is like this much alcohol or vodka. And
How old were you then?
it was a week after I turned 15, I remember. Because I think I remember my head being like 14 sounds bad. It was like 15 sounded better, But it was, when you at that age you only really went out once a month, there'd be a club land on at the end of the month. But yeah, there was some times I went on buses to Cookstown and I woke up on the bus home and I was wondering why, I wasn't getting off the bus, but I slept through, passed out on the bus and woke up at 12:30 on the way home. So I knew my drinking was that, but at that age, I'd always say, as any young lads that reach out to me or young girls reach out, at that age you just think in your head, oh sure, I'm 15, 16, sure, all my mates are doing it. It's not a problem, I'm just a bit, I always used to think I was a wee bit more not wise than my mates, which is fine, it's not, I wasn't doing any harm at that age.
There's a badge of honour in that a little, I think too. You're mad on the drink.
Yeah, that's...
And the mad on the drink label it's a bit of an honourable status for teenage
100%.
Teenage boys especially,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, and I was a bit like that too, yeah, Matt's mad on the drink, and that would motivate me to be a bit more mad.
Of course.
Drink
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
You have to live up to this sort of name that you have then.
Yeah, so you became the clown because...
Sort of, but I wouldn't have went out and caused any harm per se. I wasn't going out and
Boxing
or anything. I was just getting loaded, and I couldn't really remember most of my nights out. Genuinely, I would have got photos sent to me the next day, or people text me going, "Do you remember? Do you remember us in the pizza shop last night?" And I was like, "Yeah, I had a clue what they're on about. I had no recollection. Just, you know what I mean." So, but that was 15, 16, whatever. And then when you're 17, you start to go out maybe on it starts off on a Friday night, and you maybe start off going out on a Saturday night. You're 17, you can get into places over 18. And that's really where it started. But you don't really have any real responsibilities regarding work or girlfriends or anything until you get a wee bit more older and things get more serious. So less things can ultimately get affected, if that makes sense. And no real hangovers when you're 15, 16, so no fear or anything like that. But as you get older, I would say the weekdays became closer to the weekends. It maybe went Friday or Saturday, Sunday, the odd Monday, and then it might be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. You know what I mean? The weekends become closer to the weekdays, and then that's where the carnage come in. It was more or less most times I drank. The main pillars of happiness to me always would have been my family, my football, my work, and my girlfriend. And 9 times out of 10 when I drank, all 4 of them were being affected. And it actually got to the stage I nearly would have had to fall out with my girlfriend to get out that night, to get drinking. You know what I mean? If we'd something planned, I'd nearly start a road just to get out. So that's the sort of stuff that goes through your head, like. And
what were you drinking, and what kind of quantities?
I started off, I would have drank Buckfast, a bottle of Bow, as all the boys would have said. And I would have drank pints. I had the quantity in regards to like how much I was drinking on a night out, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I always remember when I was younger, it was like when I was with 17, £20 would have got you a bottle of Buckfast and 3 pints, and you would have come home with 20p, and that's the sort of stuff you knew. £20 is going to get me this. I knew exactly the amount that would have got me loaded, and I never would have went out on a night out at the start of the night going, right, I'm going to drink tonight till I pass out.
Yeah.
Never went out with that goal. Like,
No.
nobody wants that goal unless you're insane. But that's what happened every time. And I woke up knowing, Jesus, happened again. But the insanity is to continue doing it, even though you know the outcome's always the same. So yeah, that was probably that. But like it got to the stage I was sort of at times drinking till I had no money left.
Yeah.
I'd know I'd be going out at maybe £200 or something, and I'd spend £130 or something, which is mad. Mad how the money you spend on drinking. I'd have £70. I'd wake up the next morning, and it was the big problem with me was if I woke up with a certain level of alcohol in my system, there's not like a thing in the world that anyone could say to me to stop me going drinking that day. Like, I've had my mum at the edge of the bed saying, like, I'm begging you, not today, please don't go out today. And my girlfriend saying, if you go out today, I promise you I'm breaking up with you, not this isn't happening again. Or a football manager's ringing me, and these are all things I love. But in my head I'm like, I'm going regardless of what you say to me. Like,
this is similar to what Emma was saying there.
Yeah.
The most important things in your life somehow are not.
Yeah,
when it
exactly.
comes to that.
That was the most important thing.
What would you say to your mum there? Or your girlfriend? Would you say, well, would you lie? Would you say I have to go because it's my mate's birthday? Or
No, I would literally I'd sneak out of the house, like, and that's I remember I rang a young lad from my club, because I sort of would have made I knew young lads of 17, 18 around the club. Like, if I texted some of my closest mates who didn't want me going out drinking, they wouldn't lift me.
No.
But if I texted this young lad, 17, 18 year old, this is the type of stuff you get up to. I was texting like a young lad and say, lad, you wouldn't do me a favour and run me into town here, would you? Knowing they would do it.
Yeah.
So they'd come.
Knowing that he respects you, maybe, and
and I take advantage of that, and I don't mean that in a cocky way or
Ego
anything, but I just know they would have did it. Like,
that's a brave thing to admit, to say.
It's the same way if I was 17 and, you know, one of the county lads or something that texted me, I didn't have a car at the time, but I would have got a bike and I would have drove them. You know what I mean? I would have did. So
Yeah, a selfie with them would have been like, oh, that's what Justin.
I was he texted me or whatever.
Sure.
Justin, so was this like just going, when you talk about going out, were you going out with a group? Were you going out with another a mate? And where were you going?
I was going out. I was going out to bars. Sorry, I wouldn't have drank in the house. Mum wouldn't have let us drink in the house. Maybe the very odd time we'd have a couple of pre-drinks in the house to go out, but always went out in groups. But see, it's funny actually. Whenever I went drinking the day after, this sounds insane, and I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this a couple of weeks ago. I actually loved going to the bar the second day on my own and sitting drinking on my own. And like, then if boys joined me, yeah, like I wasn't like a loner, like, but that didn't occur to me. I was going to get drink, and talk shit to the man behind the bar or whatever, and I didn't care who I was with. So yeah, I went out with my mates. I went to, there's an early house in Armagh. I probably can't say where it is. You might know it, but I would have went in there many times, like on my own or with my mates. But yeah, it wouldn't have mattered what time. It was nearly, I was going drinking the next day. It wasn't a set time. It was whatever time I woke up at. Within half an hour, I was away. Like.
Can I just go back to when you were 15 and going to Cookstown? How were you accessing alcohol at that time? I mean, was that who was getting sourcing?
So I would have just texted like a 18, 19 year old from the village that I know. You would have seen him drinking in the park and stuff, and he would have maybe give you a drink of his when you were 14, 15, and I just knew you sort of would have knew who would have been would have went and got it for you. So I always would have on this Thursday night said meet me down at the bridge and I'll give you £5 for the quarter bottle or whatever. So you always would have been no problem getting drink. You know what I mean? But I wouldn't have been stupid enough to ask my older brothers or parents or whatever at the time. You know.
Whereas places like Cookstown and other places which have like discos or whatever for kids of that age, they don't sell, obviously.
Yeah.
To kids.
No, they don't.
But is it commonplace? Would you arrive at Cookstown and see or observe kids in doing the same, or was it typical?
Yeah. Oh yes.
Oh,
yes.
God,
Oh
yeah.
God. It would have been like you should have seen the amount of drink sitting on on a bus after a night out. And if I was going drinking after, you'd just be walking off, listening to Cactus Jack and just stuff lying about it. But it was more or less everybody was loaded on the buses, and it's still the same. Like I know not that I've been on a bus or anything in the last couple of years out, but I know I've seen videos and stuff. It's still very much the same. Like
Oh, it is. My son's 16 and he
same.
sent me photos and I was all, who bought you that?
Aye. It's madness. It's exciting. Like if you really wanted, you'd get it. That's
And plus getting into overage discos at 15 and I was all, where'd you get the fake ID? Do you know, at this stage we have to watch our children like with internet and they are so, everything's there for them. And watching that, sorry, not taking away from you,
no, you're right.
shocking.
I know.
Shocking.
Were you were playing football this whole time though too, weren't you?
Aye, that's the same thing.
So, I mean, I kind of get it because when you're 17, 18, 19, you can drink and you can still perform in sports and stuff. But that must have affected your football? You're a very good footballer. Let's not beat about the bush. You're a brilliant player. Was that affecting your performance, or were you able to handle it, or were you on the sesh like 4 days and then you go training?
I would have thought that's one thing I would have always did, especially at any age, 15, if I went drinking. Because I wasn't going drinking the next day when I was 15, 16, 17 really. It was only it's a progressive disease, but I would have always went train the next day. I always would have prided myself that I would have, right, if you're going to go drinking, you make sure that you're training harder than everyone else. And that's what I did for a long time. I always would have did that extra bit, and I will admit it, a lot of the time it was, right, I know you're going to be going out every weekend, so make sure you're training harder than everyone else. And that's sort of what I did. But how I was getting away with it, like when I was coming on with Armagh 2 years ago, I come on in multiple championship games. I come on in the 2 quarterfinals in 2022 and 2023, and I was drinking when I shouldn't have been in them stages. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't drinking every single weekend, because the stages you might have training on a Sunday morning and you can't do it especially at that level. But there was definitely times where I drank when I shouldn't have at that level, and it's not. Do I know if it's affected my performance or not? I don't know. I wouldn't have drank the night before a match, you know what I mean, for to be hungover on the day. But I suppose you probably can't get fully the best out of yourself whenever you are living that sort of lifestyle. Like, but don't get me wrong, I would have did everything else right, my nutrition and gym and everything else. I would have did all that. But then people couldn't work this out. My managers always would have said to me, they're like, I just can't fucking work you out. you love football so much, you train so much, you do everything right, but then you fuck off at the weekend and drink for 2 days, like, and they couldn't get it. And I sort of didn't get it, and I kept reverting back. You're a bit not wise. That's what I told myself until I was 22 anyway, right up until I quit drinking.
Crazy fun, Justin.
I'm a bit not wise.
That's just, he's... I've forgotten my question now.
Well, was there... I mean, do you remember looking back? Was it just a couple of years ago when you thought, "Look, I have a problem here"? When did that realization sink in?
It was a combination of hearing. It was a lot of my football managers, because I'm so involved with football and any teams I be in, especially at club level. I grow a real good relationship with the manager or the trainer, talking about tactics and what way he wants me to play and so on. So I ended up quite friendly with one football manager. He was with my old club for 4 years, and I ended up it was the type would meet for coffees and go get food and all. And he had said a few times to me, there's potentially a problem here. I haven't mentioned this in any of my interviews before, but a lot of people don't really know, but my father passed away in April 2022 from alcohol. He was an alcoholic. people, I haven't really mentioned that. People know that Dad passed away, and I don't want. As part of me, a lot of the time, didn't want to bring that up because I don't want the picture to be painted of Dad to be just this alcoholic. You know, he was the best father in the world to me, and you know, like he would have been any football games or anything. Like he would have. I've had school games up in the first end of Donegal on a weekday at 2 o'clock in the day, and Dad's one of the only fans there. Like, you know, so he was so supportive of us. But that's just, regardless of who you are and your personality, if you've this disease, then it'll just take all away from you. And there's no dressing it up with. It is a tough thing to say, but he died from alcohol. Like that's what happened to him. But it's funny, in my head now looking back, I'm like, how the fuck did I not stop drinking straight after that? Like, you know, but I suppose it takes a bit of time to agree. But it was a year and maybe 3 or 4 months after that I gave it up. But yeah, I don't know. Looking back now, I'm just like, how was that not a light bulb moment in my head? Like, well,
that speaks to the power of that particular allergy or addiction. It's unbelievable, because you're saying about the children and they're the most important thing, but
absolutely.
And then your dad, and you would but it just speaks to the power of that, how difficult that must be to overcome. Do you think there was some sort of generational trauma or an issue there, or that has gone down the generations?
I do definitely do believe that.
Yeah. Do you know anything about what was the root of your father's?
I don't know. I just would have grew up and I would have seen. Well, I just know Dad definitely was an alcoholic. I've seen. He was. I was going to say functional alcoholic, but then I've also seen him where he wasn't functioning. You know, like this is how mental the disease is. Like, and I was only 14, 15, so whenever I would have seen this, but Dad would have been sitting watching. We'd have been watching TV, and I always remember me lying on the sofa and him sitting on the sofa here watching the TV in front of us, and he'd be talking away, and it would be all fine. Like, I mean, grand, he would definitely be sober at this stage, and he'd be like, I'm just going up to the toilet here, son, and come back down, and 5 minutes later, I'd just seen his head going, falling, and you're just like, he's been upstairs, fired in, straight back down, and like, I didn't get to the stage. I know I'm fully confident I would have got to the stage if I didn't stop drinking at that age. That eventually it would have progressed to that. But I'd just be thinking in my head, I'd be like, what's going through his head at that time where he's like, I'm sitting here sober, I need to get black out here. You know what I mean? That's the disease and how insane it is. And I just knew, there's a saying in AA, it's if you are an alcoholic, it goes one of 3 ways. You end up dead in a mental institution, or you get sober. So I had a choice. That's what I had at 23. Was it 23? I was 23. I had a choice, and I didn't want to find out how far this brutally progressive disease, how far it progresses. So I made the choice, and I haven't looked back. I went to my first meeting the day, it was Halloween night. And I'd more or less lost my girlfriend at that. I went on the drink for 4 days at that stage.
4 days.
4 days before
it.
I went to a Gaelic game up in Healy Park in Omagh. This is mental, this year, like, but I went to Healy Park, and at half time of the game had 4 pints. That's right drinking, 15 minutes, like.
Wow. Right.
And I was with my mates and they had a couple of pints, but anyway, I drove to the match, but one of my mates was there, he had maybe 2 pints in the Alba, he had one. So whenever after the game, I went to get into the car to drive. Didn't think much of it, because in my head I'm like, 4 pints is nothing. I'm sort of trying to justify in my head, I haven't really drank, whatever. But anyway, my mate goes, why the fuck, get into the passenger seat. He drove home, I get into the car when we dropped him back home, and it was the Mai were playing that night, and one of my best mates played for the Mai, and they were all, that's the game I was up watching, they were all going back to the Mai, so I said I'll join them. Anyway, I went out that night, but my girlfriend had said to me, I'd booked the Pars, what do you call it? It's the Pars Court Hotel, is it?
Yeah.
I'd booked that for me and her, and we'd booked this a few weeks in advance, whatever. she was all excited. I told her I'm going out for a few pints, and she straight away was like, Justin, like this, you know how this ends up, please, 10 o'clock tomorrow, I'm lifting you at the house, 10 a.m, be ready. Anyway, and in my head I was like, 100% I'll be home ready for 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
But I'd fully convinced myself. Anyway, I was sitting outside about 1:30 in the morning, and someone said, house party. Straight away, right, where we're going. I didn't even know these people. I knew them, but not well enough for us, like my best mates, whatever. I ended up, it was about 5 in the morning. I was like, I need to get home here. Tried ringing a taxi, couldn't get any taxis. Phone dead, and I went, right, I'm going to go to sleep here. I'm sure I'll wake up at 9. I get my phone charged, I get home, whatever. Woke up at like 11:30. I had no phone. I had no phone, which I'll get to. I said, I'm sure I'll wake up, I'll get left home, whatever, be okay. I'd left my phone in. This was a common thing. I'd lost my phone in the bar. I got that drunk that my phone was just left it at my hole, whatever. Had to go to Tomley's at 5 to 12 to get my phone. I hadn't been in touch with my girlfriend this year. Had to go get my phone at 5 to 12. Got it off the cleaner. Went up to the bar that opens at 12. Can you charge my phone? He charged it, and I rang my girlfriend. I says, are we still going? And she said no. And I hung up and just said, Pat, put me on a pint of Guinness. And that was me all day then, all day the Monday. And then my girlfriend was just like, it sounds extreme that she broke me up with me over that, but that was a combination of things over a couple of years, and that was it. And I was like, that was a sort of a moment for me that switched. I was like, right, this is the first thing I've lost here. What the fuck's next? And I knew it had something wrong with my drinking, but I knew nothing about alcoholism other than seeing my father. And I was like, the only real understanding I had of alcohol was my father, which would have seen blackouts in the house drinking and all. I was like, I never drank in the house and all, but I go to this meeting anyway. It'll keep my girlfriend happy, and hopefully I'll get her back and all this. And that's the sort of stuff that through my head. So I went to the meeting, and
this is when you reached out to...
This is when I reached out. I ended up, Emma took me to the second meeting, I think, another good friend.
Yeah,
I come back, but I got off for 8 weeks, and there's like a honeymoon period when you go to AA where people talk about, after a while you start feeling good about yourself, and then voices come into your head. You start telling yourself, not voices in your head, so I start telling yourself, right, maybe you weren't that bad there, maybe you could try to control it this time.
And you forget. You
miss the crack because it was such a big part of your life, and you miss...
A lot of thing that goes missing in these conversations, because they're very serious in it, is that going on the session is brilliant.
Oh, of course,
it's amazing, and then it gets awful after a long time. But in the moment, it's...
If it is a class, and I just see sitting around a table with your mates, and if you 5 or 6 pints, if I could stop at 7 or 8 pints, if you could draw a line there, drinking's unreal. I'd love that, and it gave me a great feeling. And
you're not the only idiot walking around at 1 a.m, lost. Exactly. You lost your phone. All your mates are home. They're all fine.
That's what I mean.
Everyone that binge drinks has been there to an extent. What you're saying about all that is giving me terrors of instances that I've been in that situation.
Yeah, of course.
I've been out for 3 days and on the lash, and nobody's speaking to me anymore. I've upset everyone, and you're always the clown. People love to hear about what happened to you. Oh, you didn't get home when you were... but there's a difference, isn't there, between that and being an alcoholic?
There is. But whenever I went in for 8 weeks, and I ended up, long story short, took a drink on Boxing Night. I drank 0-0s all day until about 8 o'clock, but I had the notion of drinking in my head, and I was drinking 0-0 Guinness, and someone who was in around us didn't realise I was drinking 0-0, sat a Guinness in front of me, and in my head I was like, oh right, well it's happened for a reason, I may as well take a few. Ended up loaded that night, woke up the next day and went straight to the bar in Armagh. I'm not going to say its name, but I went straight to there, was home by 2, I passed out in the bar, woke up at 6, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I woke up and I'd pissed myself. And at about 7 o'clock at night, I woke up. I remember it being dark outside over Christmas, and I took my clothes off, straight into the shower, got myself dressed again, and I was back in town with a young lad from the club that run me in, back in the same bar 5 hours later after passing out, and ended up passing out that night again. And I knew that I knew that was your that was.
How did you feel after that, hangover wise? Because you mentioned earlier when you're 17 there's no fear, and that creeps in a lot. The beer fear, this idea of this crippling terror, anxiety feeling when you're hungover?
It was horrendous. I'd actually
You went to the bridge.
I went into Armagh actually, and I texted Kieran McGeaney is the Armagh football manager, and he was one of the first people I'd opened up to. Whenever I went first into AA, I just didn't tell anyone on social media or anything like that. I just opened up to a couple of people close, and I knew, I was like, right, Kieran will, like, it'll hold me accountable, and he knew I was drinking a bit and stuff, so I told him. And then whenever I went drinking again, I reached out to one of the Armagh boys and I said, lad, I need to go to rehab or something here. My head was just absolutely fried. I was like, I need to get into rehab or something tomorrow. My head's gone. He was like, have you told McGeaney? I said, I haven't. He said, let me ring him for you. Because I remember sitting outside in the middle of Armagh, and he drank. I didn't have the balls to ring himself. I was shaking, I was crying. And that's where it brings you to. But then Kieran texted me then about 20 minutes later after being on the phone with him, and he just said, no line is ever straight. Get up and get at this again. Let's break 100 days this time, because I had 57 or something the last time, or whatever it was. And I got into the car. So I was in the car at this stage. After that conversation, I hadn't drank that day yet. I drove to the Hole in the Wall and had 4 pints by myself. After like telling him that I want drinking again, and I was like, right, what's the highest form of accountability I can possibly put on myself that I don't drink again and make this mistake? So I went on social media and I wrote this big massive post, and it was a photo of me at 12:30 in the day with one of my mates who was on our panel, and I was sober, and then a photo of me the next morning, the day after Boxing Day, and I'm laying in bed like completely poleaxed, and I just said this was me at 12:30 and this was me 12 hours later, and I have an alcohol problem, and I went come out and just basically told everyone. And what my goals was to stay sober, and hopefully this year is going to be a sober 2024 whatever, and so on. But I did that, and it was not an attention looking thing. It was far from that, of course not. It was purely to be like, I ended up drinking with my brother on Boxing Day, because he didn't even know I was in AA for 8 weeks before it. I hadn't even told my family. So I was like, what's the highest form of accountability? So I took to social media, and that's stood to me in that regard. Like,
it's an incredibly brave thing to do. Was it, how spontaneous was that, or was that something that you had been thinking, like, this form of accountability is something that I'm going to consider doing?
It was quite spontaneous, but it was just out of desperation nearly. I was like, I'd never ever want to feel like this again.
You were suicidal.
I was, yeah.
You sat in my kitchen
shaking. I remember
looking
drinking
today.
coffee in Emma's house like this, like, and that's drink. That's with no drugs. Like, that's that's just pure drink, and where it brings you to, and what it can do for maybe someone who doesn't have an alcohol problem. If they had a few days in the beer, they're like, oh, I feel like shit, but sure, I get on with it. But for someone
were there
who,
drugs in there too?
I haven't. Lucky enough,
But
I'm lucky I didn't, because I know with the nature of my disease, and probably not probably an addictive personality, that I would love it.
Yeah, that'd be a
So,
rabbit hole.
But that was one thing the reason I didn't take it. The big thing was because I knew how much drinking I was doing. It sounds stupid, but a lot of young ones would have said, just he loves the drink and all, he'll not make it in football. So I didn't want to give anyone else that added incentive to say he'll not make it in football because he loves drink and drugs. That was the sort of shit going through my head. Genuinely, so I never did. Lucky I never got into it, but thank God, because I know now how addicted I get easily. So lucky enough I never.
You mentioned being suicidal. Is that something you're comfortable talking about?
I wouldn't say I was at a point where I was like, right, I'm going to, but I was in the lowest spot I've ever been in my life. Like, definitely, it was
that point where you just kind of wish you'd never been born, or something like that.
I was just like, it wasn't even. I just felt like absolute shite. It wasn't even a mixture of hangover in there, but the thoughts, you're like.
It's the inner fear.
Yeah, it's a hard one to explain to someone who probably hasn't been in that situation. But it's the lowest spot I've ever been in my life. I remember going to Emma and I was in tears, like, and shaking, and just like, where does it end here? Like how do I just never ever wanted to feel that way again.
How much of a help was Emma at that stage?
Huge.
How good was it to know that someone had gone through that before?
Because like, it goes back to what I was saying. Only alcoholics will understand what other alcoholics are saying. Like I would go to my mates. I own the gym with my business partner and my girlfriend as well, and close people I would be talking to, and they'd be like, right, okay, you know, it'll be okay, and all, they don't actually get it. Whereas I'd be explaining to them, and she'd be like, I know. Do you know what I mean? And it's good. It's all, you get a relief of explaining how you're feeling at all times. Like you don't have to be feeling like absolute shit like that. Sometimes just there's things in your head that you can speak to someone who you know truly gets it, and that sort of gives you some form of relief, as opposed to someone who's definitely comforting you but don't really get what you're talking about.
If I can ask you, so what was it like sort of hearing Justin's story, and can you remember sort of when Justin sort of entered and told his story to you? How do you look back on that?
I look back at, I'll never forget Justin sitting at my kitchen table, and the pain and agony in his face, and I can't stop it for him, and he has to feel it, and all I can do is sit with him and reassure him, because by the way, there's nowhere for him to go. Word of mouth, he just knew I went to AA. And we've another good friend too that's anonymous in our wee local area as well. But knowing the state that he was in that day, and for me to try and reassure him that Justin, this will pass, and promise him, all I could do was give him my word. And persuading him to get the fluids and do all that. I didn't care about the drink. The drink was done for him, because his mental state was rock bottom. Rock bottom. And sometimes the alcoholic, you have to go there. My sponsor would call it the snake's belly. Fucking humbled to your knees, back against the wall. And some people have to get that far. To be, you'd be humbled if you don't humble yourself anyway, through pain. You know what I mean? So Justin was humbled himself of his own mistakes, and well, it wasn't a mistake, it's addiction. I know Justin never went out to get drunk. I know I never wanted to go out and be, I always went out to be the lady with the glass of wine, the nice outfit, the shoes, the bag, the makeup. And that just never materialised. I never come home with shoes or a bag or a phone. You know, and that's the difference in alcoholic, non-alcoholic.
Was that your last time, once you hit rock bottom? You've never gone back?
Was that my last drink?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
And when was that? I put that Facebook post out, and I'd been on beer for like 4 days, and I drank 2 days after it on New Year's night. I went out and I ended up actually going out hoping it's the same girl I'm going with now. We ended up getting back together, which is a success story on its own. Okay.
Stalking Katie.
I was going to ask that. I was worried in case it was, you know.
No, we got back.
She stood by you.
Oh yeah.
We finished for 6-7 months after that.
Right.
And we ended up rekindling again actually in New York. I didn't follow her to New York. I ended up going to play football in New York, and she was travelling all around America and ended up in New York too. So, but I ended up drinking 2 days later. I went out on a night out hoping she'd be there. I was at the lowest state, very vulnerable. But I woke up that next day, and I was like, I didn't even want to tell anyone that I drank though. No one really knew. In fact, I only told my business partner, who I was with all night, that I was drunk that night about 6-7 weeks later. Right. I ended up, this is how I wanted to convince myself that I wasn't that drunk. I started pulling up beside people in the streets and saying, do you need a lift home and all? Get in there, I'll drop you home. As if I was sober. I wasn't at all. So, but they were drunk too, so they didn't notice this. But I woke up the next day, and that was definitely a moment where I was like, you can never sit right now and be like, I'm never drinking again, because the big thing for me, and it sounds so cliche and you'll hear all this in AA, but it's purely taken one day at a time. And it's like, right, can I get through the 1st of January here with no drink, right, and I go to bed that night and I'm sitting thinking, right, I didn't drink today, right, okay, let's wake up tomorrow, let's do it again, let's just repeat that, and that's bring me to, or I actually went on to, it was about 2 weeks ago, I got a notification saying 500 days. I don't look at it every day. I used to at the start because it was encouraging. But when you hit like 400 days or 500 days and so on the app, I have an app, I Am Sober app. I got 500 days there maybe 2.5 weeks ago. So I just know it's in around that mark. So it's 520 days day at a time or whatever.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done. That's a brilliant achievement.
Unbelievable.
So out of this, like we're inching towards the light and the success.
Hopefully, Matt.
Sorry, you were?
Yeah, no, I'm really curious about the reaction to the Facebook post. So you put that up. How did your world react to that? Your friends, your family, people on the street, people who know you but don't really know you. So how did it go down?
It was unbelievable, the response. And it was a lot of nice messages like, Justin, we're all behind you on Facebook, but or on the comment section. But probably the same amount of messages I received directly, like a personal message. A lot of people opening up saying that you've given me the courage to come out now and do something about it myself, which to me was like, this is amazing that I've actually inspired people who are very similar to me, we're no different, to come out and some of them are now sober, some of them are still drinking, but it inspired a lot of people and they shared a lot of stories between stuff that they see in their own households and it was different, which was very encouraging for me, that I'm like, right, I'm not the only one here. And
there was the tough side of it too, though. You got some hate mail as well, which was it was horrible.
In some football games, I've had a couple of ones. I got. There's a direct correlation between injuries and stress levels and all this stuff, and I couldn't sleep for about 3 or 4 months after it. I was sleeping. My alarm goes off 4 mornings during the week at 5:15 to open the gym for 5:45. And I was a lot of time sleeping, maybe 2:45, 3 o'clock, getting 2 hours sleep, and then sleeping during the day because I was absolutely exhausted and so on. But it was, I can't even remember where I was going with that place for.
The hate mail.
Negative message.
Oh right, sorry. I play on the pitch. I played a game. I got injured because I was hardly sleeping and my stress was everywhere. I remember actually going to the bathroom at one of Armagh trains in February, 2 months after I was sober, and I says to myself, as soon as I finish here, I'm going to grab my bag and I'm leaving straight away. I'm just walking out from training. I'm not doing it. But I was walking out, one of the boys said, "What's happening? Big man, come on in here, miss, to show you or something." It was Ian Falker. He bought me a wee. He seen I was doing videos for my social media in the gym, and he bought me a wee headset, and I ended up staying that day, and I pulled my hamstring about 20 minutes later, and that's just where my head was. And the injury spiraled, so I never actually got playing a football game at home. I went to New York that June, played football over there, but I got playing a proper football game in September, since I went public with my sobriety. And I'm not going to name the team, but I probably should name the team.
Yeah, anyone.
The way I felt, but
Go for
two
it.
of the lads on the team, for them, would give me absolute dog's abuse, saying, "Come on, we get you a case of beer after the game, you big alcoholic, you, and what pint do you want after the game?" Shit like that. And in my head, all summer in New York, I was like, when I get home, someone might say something to me, you make sure and laugh it off. But whenever it happened at the time, I just seen red, and I was like,
Why would you do that?
I was just like,
You didn't take it well. You were really
I did.
hurt.
I was. I'm at
You
home
was
that
so
night.
hurt.
I cried my eyes out,
You
and I
did
cried.
cry?
I was really, really down from that. And I get people to put off certain players, whatever, from their game. You have to say certain things, whatever. But I'm just like, in my head, I was sitting that night and I was like, I'm trying to do a good thing here and help other people, and you get fucking abused for it. That was a moment for me. But then a couple of Armagh lads and a few other people gave me advice and said, look, I've had bad things said to me too. They wouldn't be saying things to you if you weren't any good. You know what I mean? That sort of stuff. And I haven't got any since. But it was that was bad at that stage.
The lads are very supportive, though. The Armagh squad. There's some of them's very good, aren't they?
They are.
And
No, they're
reach
very
out.
good. A lot of them are. They're
With your injury and
There's a lot of
over
good.
the
There's
last
good
year.
people. Like there's good people. There's a lot of good people behind you in times, I guess. Like.
Did you have any more on that?
I was just going to move on and ask Emma about because you said there was nowhere to go, and why not? I mean, in a civilized society, it should be straightforward to get help out. Is that if we move on to?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Why is it not straightforward for someone in this situation to quickly access help?
There isn't any there. There's nowhere to access. There's A&E in Craigavon, and I went down to it last week and I sat and videoed it. And everyone that was in it, a good 70% that was in it, all drunk. Ambulances sitting outside, patients in them, drunk. Police cars, people sitting in them, drunk. So the pressure on the NHS and A&E, it's not their fault. It's actually not. But there's nowhere else for them to go, and they're going there in the hope that, they'll do something to kill the pain in our head. And they're not actually, they can't be treated until everything is already out of their system anyway. But some people coming off a rip of drink, I know for me, I went into seizures and stuff coming off because of the effect it had on me. Coming off alcohol was extremely horrific. I mean, you're shaking from the inside out, soaking in sweat, and when you're coming to the end of the last drink and you've all this ahead of you. So you go to A&E hoping that there's a tablet that you could just sleep through it, or just anything to stop me from lifting a drink. There's nothing. No. My husband's from Derry. I know the people that work in the facilities up there. They are maxed out. I know the people in Coonmura. I go up and do talks in Coonmura. Maxed out. Bluestone is not a facility for addiction. It's a mental institution. There's a wee girl, we're doing walk and talk tomorrow in Lurgan. And there's a wee girl that's been texting me all week from Bluestone. And she's in there for addiction, and she tried to take her own life. And she texted me the day to say, Emma, I'm out, and I'm going to meet you tomorrow, and I can't wait. And I was like, that's amazing. And all we're doing is walking and talking in a park. Because we've nowhere else to take them. Nowhere.
Where is the nearest addiction treatment?
Oh, see, you would have to go through your own GP, and then there's an addiction clinic down at St Luke's. It's a clinic.
Right.
So I'll tell you what the problem is there. From experience, as a mother, I went to my own GP, concerned about my drinking, and immediately she set me aside and she says, "Where's your children and who's with your children?" And I says, "They're dead." "Are they safe?" "Yes." So social services come straight in, and still I was set to the side. Obviously the children are a priority, yes. But I knew my children were safe anyway, and Sean was there. But for some women, that just puts them off. And men, I know people that has lost, like went in looking help sober, saying, "I don't want to live to drink again. I have a good job." And they'll take their digger license, or them big heavy machinery, take it off them.
Because they've admitted to having a problem.
Yeah.
Well, that just seems like
So why in the name people won't go there?
And sure, then if you take that off and there's no working, and there's no other option but to drink. You know what I mean? So
they're guaranteed to lift the bottle again.
They're 100. They're set up to fail every time.
What would you like to see then? Say ideal world, all the money that you in an infinite amount. What's the ideal? What would you like to see, and where?
I would love to see. It looks like a nursing home, but it's not a nursing home, right? It's a safe place where now children and it's not just children, it's men and women that are afraid to speak out too. That they can walk in and say, look, here's my problem, can you help me? Or what direction do I go in to get the right help? People don't even know how to find an AA meeting. They don't know how to find an AA meeting for narcotics. They don't know anything of where to go, bar your own GP. And then they go there, and then they're in... Their lives is literally over them, because then they go down a whole rabbit hole of stuff. So ideally we need a safe place, like... Nearly need a hospital, swear to God.
So you can go in, objective, anonymous, staff 100% trained in that one direction to say,
Well,
here's your choices, here's your resources.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And we can take you in.
it would be... so the way AA works, right, I can tell you this, I think I'm allowed to say it. It's self-supporting. There's no doctors in it. One alcoholic can help another alcoholic. I've been to doctors, psychiatrists, holy wells, fucking novenas, you name it. None of them helped. I have been, what do you call them all things? Health farms and sanatoriums, and done it all. Done it all. And the last place I wanted to go was the first place that I got help. And it was free.
And where was that?
Alcoholics Anonymous.
That was so that's the one thing that's...
That's it.
Okay.
One alcoholic can help another alcoholic. One drug addict can help another drug addict.
Yeah.
Most facilities in New York, I've been to them, no medical people in it at all. None.
I suppose you're looking somewhere where, lucky enough, I knew someone from the local village that I
Yeah, it's
knew
word of mouth.
had stopped drinking and was successful that way.
Yeah.
Whereas, if I didn't, 2 years ago, I would love to have something like this Hand of Hope centre set up where I'm like, right, someone could say to me, right, well, I don't know where to send you, but I know somewhere that will know.
Yeah.
And then there's the
Do you know,
parents.
does that make sense?
Yeah, because what you're saying is the help that you receive is purely dependent on chance.
Yes.
And
Word
fluke.
of mouth.
So
Yes.
if you hadn't have met that person,
Exactly.
you wouldn't be sat here.
No.
Potentially
And
still
that's-
drinking and maybe
yeah.
not here at all.
So you just get lucky, and that's a
You
lot.
hit
That's
lucky.
a terrible...
You don't want to play with
The
luck when something
statistics
like
aren't
this.
good at all. They're
No.
just not. And as Coonmore is a great place too, by the way. And all them facilities are. But all that does is remove you from the problem. It just removes you from the drink or the drug or the gambling, whatever it is. But you still have to go back into society. So rehabilitation, I know in Coonmore, they only start to go to like AA or NA meetings maybe the last week before they're getting out, the 12th week. Whereas whenever I was approached to AA, I was going 7 nights a week. Meetings, constant meetings. And then everything's settled, you know. But they're coming out and the relapse, 99.9% relapse.
It's really that high. So
They don't know where to go to. I think I seen a stat. I can't. It mightn't be the exact figure, but I remember whenever I went back drinking, after the 2 months, I looked it up on Google to try and make myself feel better. I was like, what is the relapse rate for someone who goes into a...
Yeah.
I know it was just into AA, and
yeah.
it was like within 2 weeks or something, 81% or something normally go back drink, or 81%. It was like 19% just stay sober completely from the first time they go into AA. So it does take a wee bit of time. But I was going to say, on your point, if I wanted to go to Concilio's or one of them rehab spots tomorrow, and I went in, they would say come back in 6 months, which is like...
Too late.
Because they don't have the resources?
No, they don't
No,
have the
they don't have.
beds.
So like,
The beds.
imagine you telling someone who is in, like I remember the way I felt going down this house
Yeah.
when I was shaking. If
Afraid,
Emma was
you're
like,
afraid for your life.
here's the 1st of January, come back on the 1st of July, I'd have been like, what planet are you on? But they don't have, and that's not slating anyone there,
Or
they
the
just don't have
NHS.
the resources. So
No.
and like, look, what we're looking to achieve isn't going to be big enough for the entire world, but it's if it helps one person, which I know I fully believe it will help much more than that. For generations to come, I hope that's our vision.
Yeah.
But if it even helped one, then to us it's worth every second of time that goes into this.
So you guys have created this organisation, Hand of Hope. Is it the Hand of Hope or just Hand of Hope?
Hand of
Hand
hope.
of Hope.
Hand of Hope.
Hand of hope.
And this is your... Talk us through the mission statement, what is it set up to do? What's its main purpose?
So, ideally, what it was to reach out to our community here. I said we'll start with Armagh because we live in Armagh, right? That's the way we were like, we start at home. And that's what we've done, and we reached out to different rugby, soccer, whatever club was going, right, that had a big platform of followers. Because I thought, well, I don't have the money, we don't have the money to build where are we going to get it? And it needs to be got. So I've went to the DUP, SDLP, MLS, Sinn Féin, all of them.
We met with councillors as well. We can't really
councillors,
say
yeah.
who it is, but
Were they helpful?
I mean, they said, well, Emma, maybe just take it down. Maybe we'll just start with a wee room. And I says, no, we'll have loads of wee rooms. Loads. We don't need a wee room. We need a hospital. We need a building.
It sounds like me, they don't quite understand exactly what alcoholism is. It has to be led by people who get it.
Yeah.
I couldn't lead anything or give advice because I don't understand.
It's like you doing this here. I was like, how's he do all this and moving about like it?
I suppose if I was struggling with alcohol and would I rather walk into a room to chat to someone with a doctor in this room or someone who's been in AA in the left room, I would rather go left, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because they totally get it and they can pass on their experience of how they got sober to me, which ultimately is what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Are you getting a lot of people contacting you?
Oh, it's absolutely insane.
Really? Justin, what are we going to do? Thousands.
Thousands?
From whenever I
I'll show you my
went
phone.
on social media myself, first before this was in nearly 2 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
it got to the stage I was getting 3 to 4 messages a week for about a year straight. You do the maths there, like there was, and this is just people pouring their heart out to you, like, and all you can do is share your experience to them, and a lot of, what they do with that, we took some young lads to meetings. We had a 15-year-old, and I can't say where from or wherever, in the last 2 weeks. He reached out to me, and it was only the next morning I realised he texted Emma as well when I was in touch with her. I'm riddled with addiction with cocaine. 15. At 15, I didn't know what coke was, and that is. And that sounds so harsh and extreme, but that is the reality of what is in our communities these days. I
can't elaborate on how much this is children. These are children, underage children. I've had to go and do Access NI and like a child protection course because these children that's coming to me are underage. And really I should be reporting them. But they've gained my trust to save their life and get them into a fellowship. So you're torn between... And the only thing I could do and Justin can do is they have to trust us. But as long as they're coming to meetings with us and we're in contact with them all the time and know they're all right, then that's okay. That's the way we have to keep it.
This is really, really shocking. So we're talking about children being addicted to drink and drugs. Yeah. Can children go to
There's Al-Anon and Al-Ateen, yeah.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's news to me.
Yeah. Nobody knows where do you get the services? The public don't even know that.
No. Where do you direct these children? Like, do you accompany them?
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. I have carloads.
With their parents' knowledge or
nope.
Without? Okay.
No. And in my head I'm like, right, well I'm saving their life, so we'll just
I think if the parents did find out you were taking the meeting, they can't really go mad at you, can they? Like you're doing this. We spoke to Emma on the way over. I spoke to Emma, and it's funny we heard at a meeting about a year ago. It's funny, some things you hear at meetings stick to you forever, and this was one of them. It was like if you're at a meeting, if at any stage you go to a meeting, there's something wrong with your drinking. Whether you go back out, like if you're in an AA meeting at some stage,
there's a problem.
There's a problem.
You don't just call in there, like.
You don't just fall in because of nice tea, like, there's
for the crack.
For the crack, so.
Well, it ends up you do have good crack,
We do, we end up doing, but I'm just saying.
We have a whale of a time.
His parents, if they were to say something, you'd just be like, we'll ask your son why he went to the meeting,
Yeah.
and then you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, to go back to when you approached the counsellors and the MLAs, the demand is so huge.
Massive.
You're obviously able to demonstrate that, and they said, well, you know, think about a room. So, what was the explanation for that very meagre response? Was it just resources, no money?
No, actually, that wasn't the answer. She said, It was two, and it was with Sinn Féin. It was in Armagh here, and I went in, and they could accommodate till a certain level, but they want to start way, and it's going to take time. And I'm like, there's children dying right now. We don't have time. There's no time. Like the day before, there was a child hung themselves down in Lurgan. I said, are you telling me I
What
have
age
to
of
wait?
child?
16. 16.
So there are literally children dying.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. We're for St. Paul's. They very kindly, and I have to actually broadcast that, St. Paul's Gaelic Football Club is in the heart of Lurgan, right? And they seen our posts and stuff, and that's what took me to that housing estate and met with them lovely ladies. And the stories that they were telling me was unreal. One morning they opened their blinds and there was a wee boy hanging from the goalpost. The goalpost. Yeah. And his name's there and his face, and his mother talked about his wee life and his football, and I thought, oh my God. Has nobody came to you? No. No.
Everyone's turning away from that face, aren't they? But we have to look at it.
Have to look at it. I'm not going to stop.
No.
Justin's not going to stop.
I think people hear them things and be like, oh fuck, that's devastating. And then
No, that's
then
real life.
they move on without actually doing anything about what is devastating, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which is where we're looking to really...
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, I was naive before this podcast, I think. I thought you introduce your child to the GAA at an early stage, or to a football club that's not a GAA, or a rugby
Or
club.
soccer,
something like that.
yeah.
They're shielded from all this. There's no drink and drugs in these organisations. People don't behave like that. That's what
not true.
pulls people out of it. Is that?
That's not true. I think maybe parents like to believe that, or maybe they do believe it. But in reality, now we know that's...
I don't think that the organisations or the clubs are the ones actually
Oh,
saying,
God,
saying
no.
the drink.
Of
Of
course.
course
No,
not.
no, no.
But I think the camaraderie and the friendships and all that you build,
Yeah.
Yeah.
their one outlet from when they're not in the football field is, right, we'll meet up and we'll go for a few
Yeah.
beers.
Yeah.
I
yeah.
suppose what I'm saying is the view that sport mitigates the need for drinking drugs, it doesn't.
No, yeah, of course not. No.
I didn't think you could drink a lot and be a sports person, but obviously you
You
can.
d- you can.
Yeah.
And you can hide it. And
Yeah.
it permeates every aspect of life at the minute.
And you're expected to bull on,
Yes.
but you're going to break.
Because it's just a drink. We're just on the
Just a
drink
drink.
like everyone else. So there's that attitude, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, sleep it off. So St. Paul's have very nicely welcomed us down.
To give a talk? Or?
To give a talk from their all the kids from 15 up. And I said, are you sure 15's all right, and with consent of parents and all the rest? And they said, yeah. And I think there's going to be about 600 part of that club. That's branching out to mums, dads, whoever wants to come. That's part of that club, sorry. So we're starting there, and I thought, you know what, fair play to yous. It'll only take maybe one club. And our own local club's very supportive too.
Yeah. And then you just hope then it spirals, and which I'm confident it will, because it's not like this club is completely,
Riddled. No.
This club's riddled, and then this club that doesn't need it. I think everyone needs it to some extent.
Or
At
the
least
awareness. The awareness. They don't know where
for the
to
parents
turn.
and the actual child, or there mightn't be a child. It might be
A parent.
a 30-year-old who's on the senior team or whatever that wants to go for themselves.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. There's no real target, especially with this disease. You're not really targeting a certain audience. It's nearly everyone. If that makes sense.
It's a very hard thing to admit.
Yeah.
Because automatically you feel judged and less than. And me and Justin did not come from deprived areas, or were never reared less than. We're quite fortunate that way. So it's not just deprived areas. It's not. So it's hard to turn around and say, right, well, I have a problem, but even the word alcoholic today makes me squirm. It's demoralising because of the public's perception of what an alcoholic is.
Stigma.
Yeah.
Like, I met a young girl and she says, you don't look like an alcoholic. I says, most of us actually don't, believe it or not.
I mean, they're mixing up things like homelessness, mental illness,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
with addiction. People don't understand that you can be a top lawyer, a doctor. A lot of doctors suffer from addiction. And
My person that's very anonymous because he was a QC, right? He was one of the top QCs, and he has directed me in the background. He's all, good woman, Emma, keep doing it, and keep going. And he is part of the fellowship, and so he has kept me right in that sense, right? And I says, Jesus Christ, could you not just be anonymous for one day? Because they need someone like you that has like a high status of... And he said, but why are you degrading yourself? You do just as equally. And I thought, but you're a lawyer and a QC. And he was like, doesn't matter.
it would be helpful to have those voices, I
Like,
think. But I mean, you're going to lose your doctor career if you...
Oh,
you
God,
know.
yeah. No, you can't. You have to protect it.
Yeah,
You have to.
that's-
But we have all those people. This isn't me and Justin just being two dicks trying to ask for a rehab. And that's the way people are putting it across. This is sincerely very serious.
Mhm.
This is a serious problem. It's not a joke. There's children dying every day. Every day. And something has to be done.
Are you aware of the fact that you probably have saved lives now? You gave that talk. You don't know what 15, 16-year-old went to his mum and said, after that talk, can I talk to you? I'm suffering.
Yeah.
And he hasn't gone and done something
I've went with
terrible.
one kid with his... I gained his trust and I said, would it be easier if I came with you to your mum and dad? And over time, that was all right. And I done it.
Is there actually... I thought I was going to say, did bring my phone in? I was going
Yeah.
to say if I could even get up a couple of messages that I've maybe
Unreal.
received. I've just had, here's one. Thank you for your videos, mate. I'm on my own healing journey from years of addiction to drink and drugs, and just listening to you, you've inspired me, and it gives me such a lift. So thank you, mate, for inspiring me on this journey. That's
Yeah.
one
One.
of so many. Like, you know,
Endless.
Where do people find you on that TikTok?
that's just I've shared on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. I just, when I put one up, I just put
He's
fire
all
them
over
on
it.
the rest of them. You know, I use that for my own, with my business. I have to push online coaching and stuff in different videos, but it's madness, and it's there's hundreds of them. It's just like,
We have 6 rehabs in Northern Ireland.
Where's the nearest one?
Coonmara.
Coonmara and Uri,
Coonmara.
or just outside.
6. Downpatrick, the Downshire.
Derry?
They used to have
Is there one there?
Downpatrick.
Northlands?
There's one Northlands and Derry. And they're all full capacity.
6.
6.
I mean, this is...
There's
Northern
84
Ireland's
beds in total.
84.
You could have.
That housing estate in Lurgan I was in would have needed their own.
Yeah.
84 beds for Northern Ireland.
Why? I mean, the stats are there.
Oh, yeah.
Northern Ireland's got one of the highest mental health.
Our health minister did write in the paper there, believe it or not, and our story was under it, that he was trying to put 10 million into addiction services. And I was told, how do I contact this man?
I know.
Our
it's-
health minister, Mike Nesbitt.
Mike Nesbitt.
Yeah.
Like you sort of wonder how many more deaths is there until
On
there's
what,
going to be something done.
on what price tag can you put on that? 10 million? That doesn't sound...
What?
That's nothing, really, for the amount of...
Oh, that's only just for that wee bit. He said we could have that amount to cover that wee area. We are bottom of the list under the umbrella of mental health.
Mental health is addiction, yeah.
But
Yeah.
if every one of these people come out and say that, oh, I've got cancer or such and such, they would be treated much more quicker, if that makes sense. To me, that's...
Yeah.
Sorry, that was 10 million for addiction services, like in St. Luke's. Is that Is that, or was that also rehab centres with that, under that umbrella?
He just said to use towards addiction, alcohol, gambling, or narcotics. But he didn't say what specific part.
And that's just the plan, or there's nothing concrete?
Yeah,
has
no.
Right.
No.
Is there an element, when you're talking about if someone had cancer or something like that, is there an element in a lot of people's minds that, yeah, but that's a disease that happens to you, whereas alcoholism and drug addiction are kind of your own fault?
Like a choice. Like a choice.
Like
It's
a
you get a
choice.
choice.
Yeah.
It is a selfish disease.
You
like,
go out
yeah.
and you drink, and I suppose, but I suppose a disease doesn't have any motivation. It's not selfish. It's
Yeah.
But I think the misunderstanding is when you choose to go out and drink.
Definitely didn't choose to be alcoholic.
Just don't drink.
No, you become powerless.
You're powerless.
Yes.
Over this disease. It's sort of.
And that's not
takes
understood,
control.
is it?
No.
But I can understand why people who don't understand it. Like when I was younger, I would have been like, "Why doesn't Dad just not fucking drink?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I understand why there is
Aye.
that sort of narrative, but it certainly it's definitely not that.
Do you think that's why the underfunding's there? Because
I
it's
don't know. I mean, I think the pride in people in Armagh is desperate.
the what?
The pride.
The pride.
What do you mean by that?
I'm going to say...
As in they do too much pride to come out and say speak
Aye.
about it. Aye.
the problem's not here. Push it all back, even though every community in Armagh is asking me for help to go out voluntary and talk about addiction because their son and their daughter or their husband's off their head and drinking drugs.
In a way, we all know, as constantly told to us, it's okay not to be okay. If you're a man and you're
Yeah.
in the throes of addiction or alcoholism, or you've just got bad mental health, men will say that to each other. Yeah, it's okay, just talk
Yeah.
about it. But when it's yourself,
Different.
you don't know. I'm not going to talk about it
No.
because I'm not a
Judgmental.
Yeah, but you're weak. You can't take care of your own family. Everyone else is fine. Why aren't you?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how much you say
No.
this. Just speak up. It's fine. If there's something in the I can only speak to the male side of it, but the male mental health problem is so difficult to navigate
Unreal.
because we just won't.
And the men,
I know.
the statistics for young 15 right up to, 32, 33 is shocking for young lads.
What's driving it? Do you know? Do you think?
I don't know if it's all addiction. I can only talk about addiction, and I'm a woman, so
What's driving the?
Well, look at Justin.
yeah.
What's driving it? Do you mean?
I think that there's some.
Why is everyone struggling? Why is there so much mental health problems?
Well, why there's an addiction? Addiction feels like it can be driven by underlying issues.
I think that it's became the norm. You're nearly expected to go out every weekend, and it's you can't really put everything down to addiction, but I would say it's became the norm, and it's so accessible, especially with drugs as well. You know, it's so easy to get a hold of, and yeah, I would say it's a combination of things, but especially for younger people, it starts off being the norm. You obviously can't describe that for people who are drinking in the house and so on, but definitely for people like everyone was going out at 15 and 16 and 17 to these nightclubs. Sure, why would I not go out? And then that's where it sort of spirals. That's where it starts off at. But
It's all right when you're out with your friends, but soon you have to go home and lay in bed on your own at night.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a different ballgame. The camaraderie is fine to keep up with, but when you go home and close your door, you don't know what's going on in anyone's head. I have a good friend who hung himself there the other day. Worked in Emerson's.
Local.
Gone.
Aye,
Dead.
I recognise them from a good few of the meetings.
An
He's a
absolute
photographer
gentle
also.
soul, a photographer, a musician. He had,
Lovely fella, yeah.
We were talking about
Was it
him earlier today,
Armagh?
actually.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
I think I've put.
Young.
Oh yeah. A
Yeah,
gentle
he's-
soul.
Aye.
Nowhere to go. Nowhere to go.
I feel like that's every other week now. There's a.
I've put up 6 kids plus Stephen in just from yesterday on my Hands of Hope.
Yeah.
6.
That alerted me a little to your organisation because that spoke to me. It said
6.
there's another funeral of a young man.
Yeah. YGA top
Aye,
on
it's
them.
real. It's easy speaking these things, but it's actually real when
Yeah.
you're seeing death notices put up. Like,
Mhm.
if that's not real, I don't know what is.
And the ages
Younger and younger.
hits hard. Well, and I like that your organisation does that. You know, that you
have to
talk,
tell the
you bring
truth,
them
Matt.
out and you say, here's another young man's funeral. For what? For lack of
Resources,
information.
Just information can save someone's life.
Mm-hmm.
I had to show them how to look up Alcoholics Anonymous. If you type in Alcoholics Anonymous, it comes up AA NHS. People automatically just swipe past that. And that is not the website for AA in Ireland. It's AA Ireland.
Right. Is there a religious element to AA?
No. No religion or politics.
Right.
It's just to be kept out at all costs
Okay.
for the safety of the fellowship. And we tried to do that the best we can, because we're not, like, being part of the fellowship, we're friends with everybody. So religion doesn't matter.
You know, it doesn't.
No.
People get confused in one of the first couple of meetings they go to. They might.
But then that limits me reaching out to politicians. Because if I go to one and they're going to offer a bit of help, then it's the rest of them not going to follow. So
Yeah.
that's still a thing in Ireland too, in the north.
So you're raising your own money? Is that
Uh-huh,
right? People
yeah.
can donate to your
Yeah.
to your charity. What have you raised so far? Is it
Not enough.
3,000 something.
Our village, sorry, I have to say this before I forget. Armagh Community Centre has done a GoFundMe page as well for a new kitchen in the parochial hall. And I looked at it this morning. It's about $7,000. I said,
I
Justin,
didn't even know that. My head would have been racked coming in here if I knew that. That is insane.
$7,000 within a week. And I said, we've got about £80 in 4 days.
Sure,
No.
people think, we'll worry about the addicts after. We'll get a new sink in here.
So that's a prime
Do you know what I
example.
mean?
It's just there's a disconnect because it's affecting so many people and so many environments, families and whatever. So I mean, it's a crisis for so many people. So why the low amount? Why are
I have
people
no idea.
saying it's just the addicts when it's actually us? It's everyone. It's
Well, like,
society.
I
It
said
is
in my
society.
post, I was confused because, like, I'm sure you two lads know someone, whether that's a parent, a sister,
Relation,
a brother, an auntie,
a
an uncle,
friend.
someone. I'm sure both of you know someone. Everyone does.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I don't get it. How, like, we had 30,000 views or something in one of our videos, and
Yeah.
I'm just like, I
We
know
said
for a
£1.
fact. I said, if everyone donated £1,
£1.
30 grand, and that's, I'm just like, I know everyone knows someone.
Yeah.
So I'm just, I just question. I don't know.
Do you know what?
can't
Even if you didn't know someone,
I know, of course.
you would donate £1. You'd be like, God, that would be a good thing to do for Armagh.
So what is the issue? Do you think it goes back to the mentality and people's sort of stigma and the pride or is it awareness that people just don't know about the campaign enough? And if they did,
Potentially awareness. It is early stages. I mean, but it does. Yeah, you can put it down to that, but I do agree with it's an element of people sort of pushing it away and don't really want to associate themselves with that, if that makes sense. Which is that's okay until it lands on your own doorstep. And
Yeah. I
do you know
wouldn't
what I
wish
mean?
it in anyone's doorstep, but
So maybe people aren't as passionate about it as we are.
we see it firsthand though. We see the pain and devastation in parents and children, the ones that's gone especially. And I have a son and he's 16, and Justin trains and works well out of that age. And when if them people come out and seen what we seen, if my house was big enough, I'd take them all home. They're not bad kids or bad adults. They're just not well. That's the rawness of it. But they don't see that side of it. And that tears my heart because a lot of them get into society and get well and add to society and recover and give back, and they're not aware that these people aren't just, they're going to die anyway, frigate, they're addicts. That's not the case at all. No.
Where can people go to find out information about a campaign and donate if they want to? Where can we find you? And
Hand of Hope.
Hand of Hope. We've launched it on Facebook, it's a Facebook group, and we've definitely we're not sitting here now worried. We're like, we've only got $3,000. Like me and Emma made a pact that we'll
keep
push
going.
this until it's set up. So regardless of the time, like no matter what Hand of Hope is going to have an addiction centre at some stage, whether that's in the next 6 months. But we set up the Hand of Hope page, and it is definitely growing and following.
So
I
mean, we've hit America.
We've hit America, but we're it's definitely growing and following, and we post a lot of. We try to have it as an informative page also, where Emma does a lot of good work. Where she's sharing meetings and where you can go to, and these are things you don't really see often on your social media. You see everything else, but things like that. So we use it as an informative and place to go to. We post information on where our next walk and talk is, or what club we're going to next. And we try to regularly share the GoFundMe page, which we're not going to say that is the most important, but at the end of the day you need resources to get something like this set up. So
I just want to thank you for even
thank you very much
having us, because no one else has actually put their hand out.
Good.
So
I'm delighted that you came. But I really genuinely was astonished at your bravery, at what you said during that podcast. And I know it was very hard because I could see it in your face, both of you. And I'm astonished at the courage. I think it's a brilliant cause. I think you've done great work. And I've got a good feeling. I think something very positive is going to come of all this, because your heart's in the right place.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming on and talking about this with us.
That's brilliant.
Absolutely no problem. We're delighted.
Thank you.
And honoured for you to come on.
No problem.